Hello and welcome. I'm Marcia Bradley, and I'm very excited to announce that I am a soon to be non traditional graduate from the Bachelor of Arts School of Applied Communications at National Louis University in Chicago, Illinois. This presentation is my capstone final assignment. Thank you, NLU, and all of my amazing professors, especially Elizabeth Schaefer. Now, I'm glad you're here today because for the past 3 years, I have been in a self induced college studies quarantine. All of these, as you can imagine, college classes have led me to some discoveries. I have noticed that there is a trend in the evolution of communications from the 1960s to the present. Mainly how slang and jargon reflect the collective American mindset of the decades and how slang and jargon connect us. You see, I was born the first year the transatlantic telephone cable began operating. Growing up, I have vivid memories of crazy things called party lines. No, we weren't throwing telephone parties involving social distancing. We were sharing our deepest secrets on the same line with other families in the community able to listen in. The telephone was the dream toy of the nosy neighbors. Everyone knew your business. Also, that same year, My Fair Lady was a hit on Broadway. We were expanding communication across the Atlantic, and the performing arts was teaching us how to speak correctly. For those of you unfamiliar with the play My Fair Lady, the story centers around a British language professor, Henry Higgins, and his attempts to alter the Cockney accent of Eliza Doolittle. Higgins tries to teach Eliza how to speak proper English. Set in the Victorian era, when rigid language rules were defining social classes, the Cockney accent belonged to what was considered the lower class. Higgins was trying to impose his status, upper status, on poor Eliza. Likewise, in our elementary schools, we were being taught proper speaking. However, at that time, we were communicating in open spaces, face to face, person to person. Body language was involved. There were class and cultural revolutions brewing. Now, with advanced communications technology, our areas are being shared in cyberspace. We relate to each other in front of the computer and smartphone screens. What this means is what's happening around us shapes the way we communicate and reveals we are all connected. Allow me to go back in time a bit. Throughout the 1960s, an open communication revolution was occurring. An unpopular war was sparking public rallies and marches, dotting the open spaces of our cities and towns. Communication satellites were being launched into space regularly, extending our voices beyond Earth's atmosphere. We were challenging new concepts of independence and codependence and forcing the freedom to speak out in favor of liberties. Elvis's gyrating hips were insulting the status quo. Slang and jargon were reflecting the desire to break free from past traditions and develop a unique form of dialogue unrecognizable by traditionalists. We were envisioning ourselves in tie-dye moods, at free Woodstock music festivals, soaking in Martin Luther King Jr.'s inspiring speeches about racial unity, all paving the way for open freedom of expression, peace, love, and rock and roll. Humans relate to each other the way they experience life and enliven words to describe their feelings. Throughout the 1970s, open concepts were conveying emotions. The relaxed and laid back attitudes of the 70s fostered an almost alien language of the hippie subculture. The intention was to challenge the formality of language and establish a separate identity. Several ethereal terms shook up traditional connotations to unite a tribe of like thinkers. Terms such as groovy, far out, peace, psych, spaz, catch you on the flip side, and good night, John Boy. All had our parents with that what on earth look in their eyes. Enter the 1980s. According to Bob Larkin, who gave us 20 slang terms for the 80s no one uses anymore, the 80s were indeed a rad and righteous time for language. Jargon was more individually centered. Ushering in the digital age, we were beginning to adapt to new technologies. New applied sciences such as fiber optic cable television and the Commodore 64 personal computers were progressing us far beyond our comfortable physical limits of intimate social interaction. The Nintendo Entertainment System enticed kids to play indoors. So we began reining in our emotions and feelings with sayings such as gag me with a spoon or barf me out or grody to the max. Body language was still important, so along came the emojis. Itty bitty characters with faces that depict some form of response. The infant digital world was turning communications upside down. There was a social distancing emerging, yet a growing closeness with each other through the use of personal computers. So, attempting to repolarize our opposites, our very good became bad, or gnarly, and our exceptional was fat, spelled P-H-A-T, having nothing to do with the bod that you would not want to see on the beach in a bikini or a Speedo. The word choice was not an option, but a compliment. Your hair and makeup looks especially choice today, dear. Oh, thank you. I thought I was going to have to bag my face. Giving birth to a bovine meant we were over emotional or upset about something like, don't have a cow, man. The butter or smooth nature of helping oneself to grindage in your best friend's refrigerator was like not even, uncool, no, duh. Thankfully, this jargon is long gone, but there are several pieces of slang that have passed the test of time, like word, go figure, word, with two thumbs up inflection. It began in the 1980s to indicate I agree, and it still exists. Word, it's fun to say. Another slang word that has lasted is cool. And that's cool. Although I think awesome runs a close second, don't you? Before we had nothing remotely compared to universal communication until the mental rewiring of the 1990s. We were converting our brains into small chips made in the Silicon Valley. Many people were believing that by situating the Hubble space scope in outer space, detecting and communicating with aliens was a reality. It was the bomb. On Earth, more frequent hurricanes and earthquakes were intensifying, and terrorism attacks were escalating. President Jimmy Carter was telling Americans, I'll feel your pain. There was a thin line between BFF and BFD. And oh snap, events wake up were shocking and unbelievable. The country was totally bugging because of overstressing and being advised to take a chill pill. When face-to-face communication was annoying and uncomfortable, we had to talk to the hand. Talk to the hand. Often it was my bad for pushing the issue. Just what's the 411 would provide all the information I needed. And according to Carolyn Stieber from the website bustle.com, It's been far too long since anyone said, "Sup, home skillet, let's bounce." We should bring back some of this slang. My son votes for bringing back bitchin' and putting it somewhere between awesome and cool. Nonetheless, the uncertainty of turning the century in 2000 brought about some interesting lang term phrases. All right, we thought our new internet was going to crash, unable to process 2000 instead of 19 something. A big exhale was accompanying "Ay caramba" and "sweet." A highly contested election brought George W. Bush to the presidency. Life was now mega, the shit, and living large off the chain. Profanity, homosexuality, sexuality were stunting and kicking it. Apparently, we had no idea a G existed at the end of a verb. Americans went sideways when 9/11 happened and was going postal, tracking down Osama bin Laden to taunt terrorism, to eat my shorts, and hasta la vista, baby. We homies are taking my ride, and chillax. Pretty cool, huh? Yet, the reaction to an increasing number of school campus and political shootings and teen suicides from bullying was, "Yo, cool your jets, because whatever, it's no major," although it really was. I suppose finishing a complete thought was left for the listener to figure out the context of the slang. I assure you, the Columbia Space Shuttle explosion was whacked out, and so was Hurricane Katrina. The reality was a bitch. Although the media may sensationalize catastrophes, the outpouring of kindness and generosity rocked. The first African American president, Obama, meant diversity was a potent reckoning force. We immortalized our pop icon Michael Jackson with the slang word bling. Dog, oil spills, and disasters and climate change are wicked bad, but we are more aware now. Yeah, whoop, there it is, a new century and decade. The exciting thing is we are still using slang and jargon to express emotions that reflect the era. We now hear a retweet instead of "I agree." I still prefer "word." We also understand the phrase "I hate to see it," which is the same as cringe and disappointment, and "canceled" to indicate that something doesn't matter or someone is insignificant. But please explain why "dope" means something good. What? Did state governments that legalized marijuana predict that expression? One remark I've been hearing is, put my fists on my hips, "Okay, boomer." I'm getting this response a lot from Gen Xers and millennials dissing my generation. At least we are communicating a bit. Another recent slang is the text message shorthand of phrases or words to a few letters, such as FR, the abbreviation for real. Is that slang for slang? We cannot forget about CTA, call to action, LOL, laugh out loud, but it used to be loads of love or lots of love. Or BRB, be right back. IMHO for in my humble opinion. UR for your, YOUR. DK for don't know. And WTF. Okay, I kind of like that one. My question is, has our language expanded to the point that we need to abbreviate words and phrases because we are expecting everyone to think the same? Condensed? This short speak tells me a laziness is invading our conversations. Are we in the process of building another Tower of Babel, or are we desensitizing our individuality? Do you remember the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes by Bill Watterson? Calvin was always exploring life as a young child does, and Hobbes was reflecting his opinion like a sensible adult. This comic strip shows a perspective of Jargon through the years and may be more prophetic than we think. Here's how Watterson drew the comic in 1993. Calvin says, "I like to verb words." Hobbes says, "What?" Calvin announces, "I take nouns and adjectives and use them as verbs. Remember when access was a thing? Now it's something you do. It got verbed." Then Calvin just assumes verbing weirds language. Hobbes's response is, well, maybe we can eventually make language a complete impediment to understanding. Now we are facing our toughest digital communications challenge with the COVID-19 pandemic. I hope you all are coping well. America's small businesses and others are having to adapt because of our curtailing of direct face-to-face interaction. But there are also outbreaks of kindness, human compassion, and caring. We are continuing to communicate, but on a global basis. We have come full circle since telephone party lines to open digital communications, and everyone knows our business again. The international satellite signal has replaced the transatlantic telephone cable, and proper English is for official business. Slang and jargon define us in our environment. It is our unique voice. Who knows what slang and jargon will boil to the top of this decade? For future personal communications, I like to believe we will make it an off-the-hook experience, and you go girl badass better. We may learn to harmonize our voices. After all, we are all connected. Peace out. Thank you for listening, and please stay safe and healthy.